over the years. I remember when I first got here and Margie was taking the new graduate students and introducing us, and John was the program head at the time. George Merck. Margie introduced George Merck to John and mentioned that John had the Jouter probe that was on the way to Halley's Comet. And George, who really shouldn't have been in physics, asked John if he had studied Halley's Comet the last time it came around. Well, since there were 76 years between, and since he was less than 76 years, now if they ask you that question now, John, it might be a different answer. You know, I just remember so many things with John. He loved to tell me things. You know, I remember talking to him about the Pioneer Venus and how the intake got stuck. And you were actually at the control room watching the data come in, and all of a sudden the data stopped.
Oh yeah, right.
And the data just died. This was the Phoenix, the Venus atmospheric probe that was dropping down into the atmosphere, and it just stopped giving data. And then about a minute or two later, the data came back on. And they figured out that ice had clogged the intake valve. But looking at the data, they actually were able to figure out, I believe, the ratio of tritium to deuterium in the atmosphere, because the chamber was actually sealed. And they were able to actually look at the decay and actually discover something completely different that they had not. But I remember this is the kind of thing that he would tell, stories he would tell. And you know, I still have one of your mass spectrometers that went on a balloon, because he did balloons too, right? Actually in my office that I used to instruct. You know, in Apollo 17, you can actually go on the web and look at the LRO, the high resolution images of the moon. You can actually see where his instruments are on Apollo 17. If you're ever interested, go. You can actually see the footprints of the astronauts as they deployed the set of instruments, of which one of them was his instrument. You can actually see where his instrument is still on the moon. Cool stuff. But one other thing I want to tell you, John, and I've actually said this in his class a couple times, John, I always said, John's my hero. Because I still remember, he was 78, I believe, years old. Phoenix was on Mars, and I remember talking to him about his next proposal. He was 78, had an instrument on Mars, and he was proposing a next mission. In fact, you remember that conversation about the idea of putting a low altitude, maybe a booster with a tether and a hook that was spinning and would launch a low altitude satellite into geosynchronous orbit. It was just, he was drawing on the board and showing me this. This was kind of one of his ideas. 78 years old, had an instrument on Mars, and was planning his next mission. And so I said, John, you're my hero.